Radio Sultanate of Oman, 90.4 FM, and the Sultan Qaboos Center for Islamic Culture presents 2012 Season 3 of Reaching Out Through Dialogue, presented by Hatem Al-Abdissalam, hosting a group of intellectuals and experts from different fields. Don't miss the interesting discussions on science, comparative religion, culture, education, human behavior, and social issues. Reaching out through dialogue. Only in the holy month of Ramadan.
Professionalism. Where is your focus? Do you ever feel overwhelmed with projects and too many areas you wish to develop? Reaching higher levels with your personal skills, sharing and contributing your God-given talent is for the benefit of society and the praise of our Lord, who blessed us with abilities. Working on oneself is a lifelong process worthy of our time, energy, and dedication. Give thanks and praise in valuing your own attributes. Reach your own personal best, and you might earn the reward of guiding, teaching, mentoring, and training your fellow man. The world needs your ultimate, and you deserve to reach for the highest reward possible.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. All praise be to Allah, the Master of the Day of Judgment, and peace and blessings be upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. O Allah, grant us knowledge, wisdom, and sincerity. Dear listeners, I'm your host Hatem Al-Abdissalam. I salute you all with the salutation of the people of paradise. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Please join me in welcoming my distinguished guest today, Mr. Adil Muhammad Al-Shaybani, who is an engineering manager in the aviation sector. Assalamu alaikum, brother Adil.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks.
It's nice to have you on the show, and we are honored to have you for the first time on our show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, if we can start, brother Adil, tell me what you thought when I first called you and I asked you about the program, and I told you what topic you want to talk about.
Well, I'd say initially I was quite surprised, shocked. However, I was quite intrigued because I think the topic that we're going to discuss today is a very interesting topic.
Which is specialization and career development.
Absolutely. And it excites me very much.
Now, how can we define the word career?
How do we define career? Thanks for starting with that question. In the way I would define career, I guess I would say it's a sequence and variety of occupations, paid or unpaid, which one would undertake throughout his lifetime that involves or includes learning and work and life roles. Or, in other words, it's a pursuit of an occupation or a profession throughout a lifetime of a person that involves progress within a profession.
We come across the word career very often nowadays, but one would think might be a new phenomenon that did not exist in the past. What do you think about this?
My opinion, I think it existed in the past, but it wasn't labeled as a career. I think it's been there for ages, and people chose a particular profession and mastered it and did it throughout their lifetime. And that is what a career is, where you pursue it throughout your lifetime and you progress or develop while doing it. So I think it's been there for ages, but labeling it, I'd say it's been there for a few hundred years.
If we categorize work into three categories: career, job, and earning a living. Is there a similarity between them? Are they the same thing, or they share something, common?
I think they have quite a lot of commonality. Yes, and they all involve work. And they all involve getting paid. But I think in terms of career, we've just talked about its definition. And my personal opinion is that it involves having a job. However, that job has a particular progress where it involves learning as well over time. Earning a living, I think, is just getting day by day, to be honest, and putting food on the table. Although all the three categories that you've just mentioned involve getting food on the table. A job, I think, is just paid position requiring specific tasks to be performed, be it on a daily basis, and it can vary. It could be long-term, short-term, temporary, permanent basis.
But career is more into something what you like, something that you're comfortable to doing.
Not necessarily. Some people have careers in areas that they don't like. But yes, having a career in something that you like, yes, that would be amazing. A career, I think, is more long-term and involves learning and progress and development.
I always wonder, Adil, how important is it to have a career? Can we survive without careers? Can we just be normal people, and have normal jobs?
I think there'll be two schools of thoughts on that. I mean, some people would say not really. Career probably is not very important. And to have money to live on and a happy life means more than enough, is better than having more than enough money in a career. But if you're lucky and can find a career that you love and pays well and gives you enough time away from work to enjoy other things, yeah, fine. Well, very few people are lucky that way. But my personal opinion is, yes, it is very truly important. And we need to understand that a job and a career is different. A job is something you do to make money. A career is something a person does with college or university degree. Okay, and maybe something that they actually like to do. Okay. Plus, in most cases, a career will make a person more money. Now, having said that, having a career can help you both emotionally and financially. Emotionally, in terms of satisfaction, you feel satisfied seeing yourself develop and progress,
so you're not
and
doing
achieving
a job,
further.
So you're not doing a job for the sake of doing it.
Of doing the job, yes. Not punching in at 7 and leaving at 3 and that's it, with no long-term plan or something to look forward to.
What about productivity and efficiency? Do you think that in careers it becomes better and more improved than a normal job?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think when somebody pursues a career, it improves his productivity and efficiency greatly because he's looking forward to development and the next step within his career or another job and an increase in pay. So definitely, I personally believe that somebody who's pursuing a career would work harder, probably even smarter, and be more efficient than a person that's content with what he has as a job, as long as it puts food on the table and provides shelter and the basic necessities of having a simple life.
In your opinion, Adil, what are the best means to choose a certain career which is suitable for you?
Well, choosing a career is quite an involved process that is based on a number of things, of which it includes interests, a person's interest, his skills, his values, and his personality, I'd say. One thing that we lack probably in this part of the world is career development professionals within high schools. Okay, I personally believe that something would benefit a lot of the youngsters that are in high schools, where you have a career development professional or a counselor that helps you and guides you in choosing the right career that meets your personality, your values, and your interests. I've seen this practiced pretty much in Europe, where you actually have them in high schools. and they come up with various tools and assessment methods that will help you choose the right career that suits you.
When would be the right age to think of a career, do you think? Now we're getting into more detailed topic.
Well, my personal opinion, it's never too early to decide on choosing your career. It's always better to plan ahead. You have plenty of time to think of what you like, and if it doesn't work out, you have more options. So, what's the best age? I'd say early years of high school, 10th grade. I think that's when a person or a young man or lady would be in best position to start looking out at the work market and see what sort of jobs are available out there, and what really meets their expectations in terms of interests, in terms of values, again, going back to that.
I think it depends from a person to another. Some would start thinking of their career at an early age, and some of them maybe prefer going through one or two jobs, and then they start getting the interest of getting a particular career. They are maybe more matured, more established, and then they would think of doing something that they like.
I think those kind of people are really undecisive and didn't plan ahead. So they got to their third year of secondary school and they're graduating, and they really have no clue of what options are out there. What are the professions available and what areas I can specialize in?
But don't you agree, Adil, that you don't always have a choice? Sometimes you're pushed into a particular career that you didn't have a choice to do, and then later on you decide that okay, now you have an opportunity to change your career and try something else that you're good at. So maybe it's not always that you have the upper hand on this.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. Yes, that's for sure. Sometimes you don't have a choice. It depends on what's available, what's the scholarships available, or what are the jobs available at that particular time when you are looking for a job or to pursue further education. But I still think if you plan ahead, you would have a clear mind in terms of deciding what you really want. The category or the people that you were talking about, I think is more people that didn't plan and were just ready to accept whatever's available.
Yeah, but at the very beginning of the show, you mentioned that seeking a career, you have to go through some steps and you need some elements. And one of them is proper education, college education. And for some professions or some careers, you will not be able to do that career if you don't have that qualification. So this will restrain you from... so you might have planned for it, you might have wished for it, but you did not have the means or capabilities to go forward with this career.
I agree, but the thing, if you had wished for it, you had planned for it, have you worked hard for it though? I mean, we're looking at different professions. I mean, certain professions would require that you score quite high in mathematics, for example, and physics. And vice versa. Some would require biology and chemistry. So if you know what are the basic requirements for that particular profession that you are seeking or pursuing, I think you would plan ahead and work hard on concentrating and focusing on those particular areas that would prepare you to pursue that particular qualification that will qualify you for that profession.
Now, coming to a career that you like, okay? Sometimes you would like a particular career,
Yes.
but you don't have the abilities or the skills to do that career.
Yeah.
So it's not always you'll be successful in what you like.
Yes.
What do you think? Do you agree?
I totally
Is that-
agree. I totally agree. I mean, I'd say kids, teenagers create their own role models, okay? And sometimes these role models are driven by personalities that they've seen on TV, people around them, families, relatives, family relatives, friends, and they focus on a specific profession because their role model has that profession, okay? And the teenager or the young man or lady do not have the qualities or the skills or the interests required for him to excel in that particular profession. It's because their role model's profession is that they go after it. And that's where you see people getting into jobs, okay, becoming doctors, for example, or becoming an engineer, and they never progress in their career and they're stuck in their particular position for ages. And eventually, if they're in their sound mind, change professions to something that more suits their personality, values, and skill set.
Yeah.
So, yes, I totally agree with you, yes.
Is there a limit for every career, Adil? Is there a full stop for the progression in your career, or is it always a development process?
In terms of positions or grade within an organization, or in terms of pay or remuneration, yes, I believe there's a full stop. I think every individual has certain capabilities that you cannot exceed or push beyond. And we're not all equal in terms of capabilities.
Yeah.
I'd say there are limited opportunities as you progress in your career and you move into management. It's like a pyramid. There's just going to be one on the top. There's only going to be one CEO to one organization, or one general manager to a company. So those kind of positions, if that's what your question is leading to, yes, there is going to be a full stop. But in terms of personal development and being an expert or a reference individual, I don't think there's a limit. In terms of attaining additional knowledge, there's the technology and is evolving on daily basis. There's always something new to learn. So in terms of attaining knowledge, I don't think there's a full stop. In terms of career progression and moving into the next position, the next higher position, and attaining more pay, yes, there will be a full stop.
Adil, let's move on to youth.
Yes.
I'm sure you, as a parent, you have thought about this and you are going through the process of becoming a good parent.
Yes.
Now, for the young generation, seeking a career among youth can be translated into 3 following points: imitating friends, parents' choice, or a blind choice.
Yes.
Let us take one at a time.
Okay.
We'll start with imitating friends. Have you witnessed this?
I have. Yes, I have.
And maybe one day you were a young man and you
I'm
had...
still young. Thank you very much, Hassan.
and you had to imitate a friend in choosing your career or something.
I personally didn't, but I would say I personally changed careers very early on. And it's my experience is exactly what you mentioned earlier, where I had no other choice. And I had to accept what was offered on the table. And I moved into accountancy. And 2 years down the line, I learned that accountancy's got nothing to do.
You're not meant to be an accountant.
I'm not meant to be an accountant. And I switched and focused on engineering, and I love what I'm doing. But talking about people imitating friends, yes, I've seen it back when I was in school, where, even teenagers create their own role models among their friends, okay? And sometimes they look up at a certain individual and they tend to listen a lot to what his individual aspiration in life is and try to imitate it. Yes.
You know, these days there is this governmental website that you can apply for the careers or for the scholarships that you want to get. And then you have choices, like you choose 3 choices. And I came across a few youngsters, and they call each other and they ask, what have you chosen out of the 3? And then their choices are based on what their friends have chosen, So it's not what I like or what I want or what is good for me. It's always that, okay, what have you chosen? And I'll choose the same thing.
And that's true. That's
and
true.
then you end up down the line discovering that, sorry, this is not
for me.
This is not for me. Yeah, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So imitating friends, yes, for sure. It's not the right choice, but again, it happens and it's part of growing up.
Absolutely.
The second one, Adil, is the parent choice. Always our parents tend to make the decisions on our behalf. And parents feel that they know what is good for us. Tell us a bit about this, Adil.
Yes, parents tend to, instead of guiding, tend to direct their children sometimes to certain professions or careers that I personally have witnessed as well, is that parents would like to live their dreams within their children. And instead of focusing on guiding their children and showing them what are the options available and trying to look at what would interest them and what suits their kids the most in terms of skills, talent, and personality, they target professions that they would have loved to have, or professions that they are in, or professions that have high pay.
This is very, very important, what you have said, Adil, is sometimes we come across parents and their kids, and you somehow find out that if the father is a doctor and the son automatically becomes a doctor, if the father is an engineer, the son becomes an engineer, if the mother is a teacher, the daughter becomes a teacher as well, which is a very strange phenomenon. And the other part is what you have just mentioned, is that parents try to live their dreams in their kids. So if they did not come across the opportunity to become something that they like, then they see this dream living within their kids. And what is surprisingly is they become so aggressive when the kid argues with the parents that, sorry, this is not what I like, this is not what I want to do. The parents become aggressive and they don't understand why you're refusing this.
That is a real scenario that you're talking about. Absolutely, I totally agree with you, Brother Hatem.
So what's the way forward, Brother Adil, to tackle these three? I'm sorry, we forgot the last one, which is blind choice.
I think we've covered that.
We've covered that.
We've covered the blind choice. I think blind choice is, we've talked about it. And yes, sometimes you either have no choice and you have to take what you have, or just count till 10 and whichever you pick, you put them in a basket, and whatever profession you pick out, that's what you go for.
How can we tackle these issues, Adil?
Well, I think by educating the teenagers or high school students and their parents. I think we have an obligation to do so. I think we as parents all want our children to succeed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something we all want. While in an ideal world, it would be nice to support your child saying, whatever you want to do, I'm okay with it and I'll support you. Okay.
But in reality,
but in reality, in the real world, it's very difficult for a lot to secure a job in whatever a teenager would like to do for the rest of his life. So I think we as parents, for example, need to look out what recruiters are looking for in terms of professions, and highlight these opportunities to our kids. Okay, and again, assess what would suit them the best. Okay, what would suit them in terms of their skills, talents, and personality, and start asking them questions, and guide them to what would be the best profession to pursue. That is, rather than allowing them just to go blindly and this is what I want to be, this is what I like, and this is what I want to do, and those particular professions are not available in the job market or have limited opportunities. We're at times where recruiters receive hundreds of CVs for just one position offered. So we really need to target the job market.
Adil, what about identifying the skills or capabilities of our kids at a very young age and trying to groom them through the growing process until they become ready, once they're grown up? So if you find your kid is more into, let's say, math, and he likes doing math homework, so you try and groom them and get them ready, prepared, and once they grow up, and then you already as a parent have an idea that my kid is very good in math, and these occupations like engineering would be a suitable career for my son. And then you would guide them and make them understand, give them an induction about engineering.
That would be the ideal way of guiding our kids to their careers. Identifying their skills and strength at a very early stage, okay, and identifying what sort of subjects or interests they have. Yes, so we need to pay attention to all of that very early on.
Adil, what are the advantages of having a career to the individual and to the society?
To an individual, typically a career means you're a professional. So it brings a series of benefits. I'd say one of the top benefits is the salary. Higher income typically than a job, okay, if you want to pursue a career. So there's higher pay that is expected than somebody who's just in a job.
Now that you have mentioned that, there is a misconception that careers is always related to a thick salary. But at the beginning you mentioned that sometimes a career can be a paid career or unpaid career. So you can do something as a pleasure, like book writers.
Yes, exactly. That's a career.
They get paid maybe once a year, but they love what they're doing.
He's an author, so it doesn't necessarily relate to a thick check. I think it relates to a pursuit of a profession, okay, with progression. So not necessarily with a salary, but if you're in an organization, for example, you can relate it to a salary. Because I'm comparing it with a normal job, where somebody's doing a normal job, getting in at 3, 7, with no anticipation of any progression, not going the extra mile to improve or develop himself or the organization, all the processes that and the tasks that he has. Then, of course, for somebody who's pursuing a career, would definitely earn more money and have better salary. However, another benefit would be advancement. Compared to a job, you wouldn't advance.
Adil, at the very beginning, you touched a bit on the educational system. How can we emphasize or enhance the sense of responsibility in terms of choosing careers to our students or our youth?
I think a lot has already been done. The education system has already changed, I think, compared to what the education system was at the time that I was in school. And I think there's more focus on specialization at an earlier stage and a focus on specific subjects. And I think that's the drive to focusing individuals or our teenagers into specific careers. The choice, for example, the IGCSE now that is offered in a lot of private school, the public school with the new system of the Ta'lim al-Asasi, okay, has focus on specific subjects at an earlier stage rather than a later stage where we had to choose at grade 11 whether you focus on science or arts. This starts much earlier, I think around grade 8 or 9, where you have to choose.
And it gives you a better focus.
It gives you a better focus, and at time of graduation, you already have the basic skills and the basic qualifications required for a specific profession that you want to pursue.
Now, Adil, let us move on to the next part of our topic today, which is specialization. And if we start off, what do we mean by specialization?
Well, specialization, I'd define it as the process of focusing on one's occupational concentration or a specific area of expertise, I'd say. I'd define it that way, where you really go in depth in a specific subject and specialize and become an expert in it.
Adil, who can we label as a specialist or an expert in a particular field?
Who would we term as an expert or a specialist?
Well, not any person can turn up and say that I'm a specialist or I'm an expert.
I mean,
in a particular field.
You certainly don't turn into a specialist by a given number of jobs. I personally think the true specialists usually hold a degree in their field and or have worked in a particular profession for a long time. They simply know what they're talking about. True specialists are the ones who you can wake up in the middle of the night and from a deep sleep, and they will be able to tell you how a particular machine works, for example, or can recite a law or a regulation. Those, I think, would be termed as specialists or experts.
Now, we always wonder, Adil, why is specialization a monopoly to a particular profession, such as law or accountancy or medicine?
I tend to disagree with you. I don't think specialization is a monopoly into those professions that you mentioned. I think specialization can be in any particular field. I think what you're sort of implying is that these are professions that are accredited by a governing body or an independent body, like medicine, law, where you actually have to sit a bar and get your qualification tested or accredited for you to practice law or practice medicine, for example. And accountancy, you have to attain a certain qualification from a higher body, like a chartered accountant, for example. That's a qualification. That's more accreditation compared to specialization. Specialization can be in any field. That's my personal opinion again. So that doesn't necessarily need to be the norm. And I see specialization in every field. For example, in human resources, you would have a specialist in remuneration. You would have a specialist in policies. You'd have a specialist in benefits. Okay. So you really just focus and you become a specialist in that particular task or field.
Maybe the thing is that people are not labeled as specialists. That's why it's not very common.
Yes.
And you just find it, you have given examples of the HR department, and normally someone from the HR will be just called an HR person.
Yeah, or an HR specialist. There isn't an HR specialist because HR alone is a very huge area that you cannot just become an HR specialist on all. You could be an HR advisor where you have a little bit of knowledge of the different parts within human resources.
And maybe to the Arab world, the term specialist is maybe still new and people don't tend to use it.
Exactly.
So normally when you go to organizations, you don't find the word specialist in front of a title.
You nailed it. Exactly. If you look at the job titles that are in the West and you see these kind of terminologies or titles where you
expert, specialist,
a
champion.
Specialist, exactly, where they're not very common here. But I think they're moving in as we see a lot of international companies investing in Oman and establishing their companies here. We see more and more of these kind of job titles coming in to this part of the world.
If we want to encourage more people to become specialists, tell us, Adil, what are the benefits of an individual to become a specialist?
Well, there are pros and cons, I'd say. There are benefits and there are negatives as well. I'd say a few of these benefits would be an increase in the efficiency. I mean, practice makes perfect. You know. Therefore, the work within a particular skill will develop skills and efficiency through repetition of a job. When you're specialized, you're actually repeating the same task again and again and again, and you sort of improve it and master it.
As you're not distracted with doing other things, you're just in a particular field.
Yes, absolutely. And personally, it saves time, I think, also. There's no need of switching from one place to another. In a case of a worker, using different machines, different areas, different locations. And then you improve accuracy. Again, I'm focusing on production here. When you repeat the same task again and again and you become an expert or a specialist in it, it is likely to be more accurate in production. And again, reduce cost. Another benefit would be reducing cost. And mainly because you do not have to repeat the same task again because of errors or inaccuracies where you actually have to scrap the task, or the product that you have produced or manufactured, and you improve that accuracy or eventually reduce cost. And it also creates independence. Each worker works independently with his particular field, with the skills that he has attained. However, one of the biggest negatives, I would say, is that it creates a little bit of boredom sometimes, because
when you do a particular task,
you repeat the same task again and again and again. You are really a specialist in the particular task. But it really depends on your personality and on your character. If your personality is fine with that, a lot of people are fine with that. They want to just improve.
Be good at what they're doing.
Be
the best
at what they're doing and improve it every time they do it. Another disadvantage probably would be in the event of the company closing down or the industry losing a job and becoming quite difficult getting a job in what you've specialized in. So it limits your options.
I never thought of that. I
Yeah.
always thought that being a specialist has its advantages, and never thought that you might end up losing your job and not finding a place to.
Because you haven't gained any additional experience or expertise in any other field, so you're really a specialist in that particular field. So not all industries might need that field, okay? Or there are limited organizations or companies that can offer a position as a specialist in that particular field that you have specialized in.
I want you to take us through the responsibilities and accountability of specialization. Is it true that specialized individuals are more accountable by law and by the society than other individuals?
Yeah, by society, I think probably, but whether they have more responsibility or accountability, I think there is more expected from a specialist compared to a generalist, if you like to use that term. But not necessarily additional responsibility or accountability. I think people tend to expect that you know everything if you're a specialist
And
or
you're
an
not allowed
expert.
to make mistakes.
And you'll have an answer to all their questions. And they can be very unforgiving when you get something wrong. So you're expected to not make any mistakes at all. Let's take an example of a GP, a doctor, okay, that prescribes you medication for a rash. For example, you walk into a clinic and you have a rash. You go into a GP, he looks at it, okay, asks you a couple of questions, give you a medication, tells you come back to me after 5 days if the rash
Doesn't disappear.
doesn't disappear. It doesn't work. Okay, you probably go to
A specialist.
a specialist,
A skin specialist.
a dermatologist. Exactly. You go to a dermatologist, same rash, gives you a different medicine, it doesn't work.
You'd be pissed.
You'll be pissed. He's an expert in skin as a dermatologist. So you see, we expect more. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have higher responsibility or accountability. They probably have higher responsibility because they're an expert or a specialist in that particular field. But in terms of accountability, I don't think they're more
Maybe
accountable.
in terms of their jobs, maybe through their employers. Their employers will find them accountable for not reaching the expectations of the patients.
Yeah,
somehow.
you have a point there. Yes, I agree with you on that.
Now, Adil, some people think that they have the capabilities to perform more than one job at a time, and they don't find it important to spend time to specialize in a particular field. I don't know if you come across people with such character.
Well, Hatim, specialization, I think, is not always required in every profession. Okay, I personally believe that specialization is driven by demand and capacity. For example, if you work in a medium-sized factory manufacturing 50 cars a year with a workforce of, let's say, 100 people, you wouldn't need a remuneration specialist in your human resources. Going back to human resources again, I've been spending a lot of time with
HR.
our human resources lately. That's why. So I've got plenty of examples of human resources here. Sorry about that. But if you work in a factory producing 1,000 mobile phones a week with a workforce of 1,000 people and with multiple skill set and expertise, you would definitely require a remuneration specialist in human resources. So specialization is not really a must. And again, I don't think specialization is for everyone. The thing with specialization is that it involves repetition, just like I said earlier,
Yeah.
of the same or similar tasks every day, day in, day out. And some people just can't handle that. Some people get bored very quickly and they're more of a generalist. I'll give you again an example of a person I know. This young individual joined a company to become a specialized engineer in a specific field. Okay, he spent about 4 years specializing in going to special courses and mastering this particular area of expertise. The organization invested a lot in training him and getting him to the level of specialization and expertise that he got to. However, because of repetition, I feel he got bored and he wanted to do something else. That didn't satisfy his ambition and aspiration in the profession.
Mm.
He was more of a generalist. He thought there wouldn't be a career progression because he's so specialized.
Mm.
And he's a very bright young boy, very ambitious. Very ambitious.
So he got stuck in this.
He got stuck in that, and there was an opportunity to move horizontally within the same organization. However, because the organization had invested so much in him,
it was
that opportunity
difficult for him to move.
was denied from him.
Mm.
He wasn't given that opportunity to move horizontally because the organization saw him very valuable in his particular field of expertise, which pushed him away and made him to resign.
Mm.
So, you see, specialization doesn't
It's
suit
not
everyone.
Always, it's not always something good.
Yeah, it's not always good, specializing.
Mm.
Some people, it would suit them, some it wouldn't.
So we're better off not specialized.
I wouldn't say I prefer specialization myself.
Adil, take us through the steps to become a specialized individual. Maybe there are scientific steps that can lead you to become a specialized person.
Scientific steps, I'm not sure, to be honest. I personally think, again, becoming a specialist is really mainly driven by the needs of the organization that you work for.
Mm.
Well, steps for specialization, I'd say, first step would be attaining a degree.
Mm.
And then getting into the job, building up the experience, attaining additional qualification in a particular area of expertise, concentrating, and continuous self-monitoring and development of the tasks that you perform. I think those are the steps required for you to become a specialist or an expert. And it involves a lot of reading and a lot of research. I personally believe in reading. I love reading. And I think with reading, you learn a lot.
And you develop your skills.
And you develop your knowledge, you develop your skills. And one of the things that I tell my team at work is always, iqra. There is great wisdom in the first word that came,
which was revealed in the Quran.
Which was revealed in the Quran, which is iqra.
Which means read.
Which means read or recite.
By mentioning the word iqra or read, it brings us to the next point, which is what makes the Arab world far behind when it comes to specialization, although some of the most advanced specialists in the Western world are Arabs.
I tend to disagree again. I don't believe we're very behind. I believe with the growth of the industries and the businesses that are coming up, we will start seeing more and more specialists in every field. I guess what you're referring to is our research and development in science, probably. You'll be probably right in that area, because I recall reading an article in a business magazine that the Arab countries just spend approximately 3% of its GDP in research and development, which is far, far less than the European and Asian countries. So probably that's what you're referring to. But in terms of specialization, I think, going back to my previous comment, is demand and capacity. When the demand comes and there's capacity, I think we'll see more and more specialization. We already are seeing more and more specialists. I recall 10 years ago when the organization that I worked for was pretty small, and my team was comprised of just 10 individuals. And these 10 individuals just handled every task required within the scope of the department that we worked for. However, as the organization grew with time, we had to create different specializations or different trades within the department, and people become specialists in their individual areas of responsibility. So I don't think we're really far behind, but the demand wasn't there. The demand is coming, it's getting there, and the capacity will be there.
But Adil, do you believe that in the coming 10 years, we will be able, in the Arab world, to export specialists to the Western world?
Well, we have been exporting specialists long ago. From your previous statements,
This is a bit different because these Arabs have migrated and settled over there. But I mean Arabs who are trained and developed in the Arab world, and then their services are required in the Western world, and they are exported because they are specialized in a particular field that is not available, let's say, in the West.
To become an exporter, I think you need population. We currently already have started exporting skills to the neighboring countries, neighboring GCC countries. But to actually mass export specialists, I think our expansion and our growth will not allow us to export the amount of specialists that you're talking about. If you look at the economies of world, it's moving far to the east now, and soon it's going to be centralized around this part of the world, which is MENA, Middle East and North Africa. And I think these are growing economies and will require a lot of specialists. So the current growth of our population will not sustain exporting specialists. So I personally think we will barely meet the requirements or the need of our growing economies.
Adil, can specialization be implemented in business? People who are self-employed, who are running their own businesses, can they specialize in a particular thing?
Oh, of course, absolutely. Their focus on a particular field of business is a specialization by itself. So let's say I want to start a business of selling chocolates. I could specialize, instead of just selling any type of chocolates, I can specialize in Belgian chocolates or Swiss chocolates, okay? And start making my own brand. That is specialization already. And have specific packaging and create a niche in the market, okay? Offer additional services. That is a specialization. You're creating a niche. You're focusing on a specific clientele.
The thing is, sometimes you tend to think differently when you start a business, that you want a fast business that will mint you money. And selling everything that you can is one of the ways that can make you grow faster. And people think that if I try something new, if I specialize in a particular field, maybe it won't work out, or the demand on it will not be so high. So they tend to move away from specialization and they become general businessmen. They get involved in many different things.
Yes, that happens. I think with proper market research, I think there's room for that. Don't forget, with selling everything or getting into every business leads you to more competition, because there's plenty there to compete with. So you're getting into a price war compared to offering the product that your customer wants or needs. So I personally think, specialization can be in everything, be it in business, industry, healthcare, service and hospitality, tourism. You can focus on one particular area and become a specialist in it.
Adil, the younger generation is not so keen about specialization and career development. What can we advise them in this regard?
What can we advise them in this regard? In specialization, career development, I think first choose a career that suits you, that you like, that meets your interests, your skill set, your talent, and that you would enjoy doing day in, day out. And then in terms of specialization, if there's an opportunity, grab it. It's not going to be easy. It requires a lot of effort. There's a lot of competition out there. You've got to be the best out of all. And it requires a lot of sacrifices. But it's a journey worth taking. So if you have an opportunity, grab it. Go for it.
Adil Muhammad Al-Shibani, an engineer in the aviation field, thank you so much for joining us in this session. I truly benefited from today's session, and I hope our audience have enjoyed today's session. I hope to see you in upcoming sessions, or maybe in the next season next year, inshallah. I hope you have a pleasant day and a wonderful Ramadan, and fasting and breaking your fast with your family. And thank you again.
Thank you very much, Brother Hatem, for having me in your program. Very much appreciated. I really enjoyed the discussion we've had today. And Eid Mubarak in advance.
Thank you. Dear listeners, I'm your host Hatem Labsalam, signing off for today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You have been listening to Reaching Out Through Dialogue.